Hey, and welcome back to Soaring Profits Thursday Night Live. Today we have the wonderful Michael. Michael has had a passion for creating wellness through awareness and working around hectic schedules. He doesn't sit still and wait for life. He experiences it and shows other professionals how to experience it too. Michael treats every waking moment as an opportunity to learn, contribute, and act. This passion has translated into more than 26 years of remarkable results for clients ages 8 to 88. Michael gives his all to his clients, and they return the favor. Through his motivation and guidance, they experience life-changing shifts that expand far beyond the physical. Michael, in 2006, started MGayle Outdoor Adventures. Like I've been showing some of his stuff this week. He did a fire training session. He's been out in Alaska, I believe. He has done some incredible things. The last time that he and I talked, which when I was back on LinkedIn, which we talked about a little bit when I was doing Autism in Perspective, he was training for a big outdoor event, and he was training a lot of people for a mud run, I believe. Mm-hmm. And watching that unfold and all the stuff they were doing was super interesting. So, Michael, 2006. You're thinking to yourself, I'm a motivated person. I got a lot of gift to give. I want others to feel that motivation. What brought you in 2006 to start MGayle Adventures?
Well, I worked for the Minnesota Vikings football team. I was an intern for them, making $7 an hour. I worked for this place called the Marsh Center for Balance and Wellness. It's basically a one-of-a-kind place I've never seen. They have East meets West, so Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts, meets Pilates, yoga, personal training, you name it. They have a hotel in it. They had a full restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had a meditation tower, it was like 4 stories up, and spiral staircase went up. They have the marsh grounds right behind it. You can cross country ski in the winter time, and it was just a one of a kind place, a hotel for guests. And it took me 5 interviews to get in there. I was an undergrad at the U of M studying kinesiology, a letter of recommendation from the dean at the U, the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons references as a former employee. And it was 5 interviews later, they welcomed me on board. So it was working for them that inspired me to say, hey, I could do something like this. I can, open up my own place. I mean, that was my dream. And my sports psychology and professor said, hey, Mike, there's something like this here in Minnesota. You should check it out. I pursued it. I got hired. I worked for him for a couple of years, and I worked for a place called the Sweatshop. It sounds like a child labor, but they're like, at the time, they were the center for like Pilates and Stop Pilates, which is a Canadian-based, Toronto-based company. They're rehab-based Pilates. And if you're not familiar with Pilates, I've taught it to martial artists, tough guys and gals. I've taught it to I consider one of the best boxing coaches in the Midwest. And I've taught it to people that just had a stroke, 80-some-odd-year-old, and got them to walk again. So these are some of these skills as I learned Pilates. And all I knew beforehand was I knew a lot weight training, I knew Olympic training, great skills. Of course, what they taught me at the U of M in kinesiology, but Pilates was just a game changer for me. It just opened my world to something different. I was so accustomed to pushing and just, and Pilates just, it's a totally different, stabilizer muscles and fine tune. And it opened my world up. In fact, it's been something that has allowed me to train beginners all the way to top level athletes and to get them to overcome these amazing feats. For example, just last year, I trained a brand new cross-country skier. I taught her how to ski, and she got her in condition just a couple of months before we got on skis. She did the Birkebeiner, the largest cross-country ski race in North America. Starts in Cable, Wisconsin. It ends in Hayward, Wisconsin. It is the biggest, 3rd biggest in the world. There's like some 2,000 people that do it. some Olympians and such. I did it for my 3rd time this year, but she crossed the finish line. It's 35 miles of hills.
Wow.
30, right? Wow. So it's really, I started the MGayle studio. So it was a Pilates personal training studio. And the reason why is because, this passion for helping people to rise above, right? To do things and in different modalities. Again, the Pilates, the yoga, the Tai Chi, the martial arts, the personal training. There's a myriad of different ways to come at it. But our focus was on Pilates, right? And that's still the focus today.
Right. Wow.
So how does a young guy from Philadelphia end up out in the great state of Minnesota? What brings you out there? Is that an education thing that starts you off on that path?
Yeah, there was a fishing hole I heard about. And I'm like, I go ice fishing, and so
walleye.
That's not the real story. If you want to know, I was working at the Four Seasons Hotel as a waiter in Philadelphia, and I had this skydiving brochure. I left it in an area where other waiters were, and this one gal came in and said, "Whose brochure is this?" "Oh, it's MGayle's." And so she came over to me. She's like, "I want to go skydiving." I'm like, "You serious?" She's like, "Yeah." So we ended up going skydiving. It was innocent. She took her sister, and I was at the upper limit. I think I was like 202 pounds because you had to go tandem, right?
Right.
So I was at the upper limit for tandem at 202. And so we got down to the bottom. It was a great experience, had it filmed, and we ended up dating.
Okay.
So one thing led to another. She happened to be from Minnesota, and we ended up moving in together, and she ended up moving back to Minnesota and finishing her degree at U of M Morris. And I got a phone call kind of right beforehand and said, "Hey, we're about to have a baby." So it's okay. Wow. Well, let me finish up my junior year in college. And so I packed up everything, didn't think twice. I said, "I'm going to move to Minnesota." And that was that. I mean, I stuffed everything that I possibly could stuff in a Volkswagen Jetta that I just purchased. And a teddy bear and the whole deal. And I drove all the way from Philly and through 3 snowstorms and ended up at some rest stop in Wisconsin. And people were staring through the window because my slobber's on my teddy bear. And, and I just, so, okay, this is intense, man. Just driving through the snowstorms. And then I got a whole parade of people just watching me like, what the heck's this guy doing, man? His teddy bear and his slobbering. And it's like,
this guy.
So that's, that was my venture, right? To the land of the Vikings.
That's it.
Yeah. That's it, man. So
you landed in Minnesota, you've got your teddy bear, drooling all over yourself, making a mess. And then all of a sudden, Minnesota Vikings, you need this guy from Philly. They know how to play ball down there.
Well, yeah, I was at Westchester State, not Westchester, New York, but Westchester State University. And I was a bio student. Then I changed to kinesiology. But they still have a really good relationship with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where Pat Croce went to school. And Pat Croce, I think he owned one of the basketball teams there. He was an undergrad at Westchester State. So make a long story short, my chances of getting an internship with the Philadelphia Eagles were high because of that relationship with the college and the football team. So I said, okay, well, I have all these references, the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton, and, I can do it. I can get I just had in my head that, I can, the intern with the Vikings, get something, even if I give my time up. What a great opportunity. So as an undergrad at the U of M, I ran into a gentleman who said, "Yeah, my name is such and such, and I work for the Minnesota Vikings." I was like, "You got to be kidding me." So I talked to him after class like 4 times, and he's walking to his physics class, and I'm like, "Okay, well, yeah, I have this background, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Well, you sure you want to do this?" And, it's not like a sure thing. Once you get in, it's, you can be kicked out and then you don't have a job. I'm like, "That's okay. Let me take a risk. Let's do it, man. Let's do it." $7 an hour. Yeah. Sounds like a plan. So he got me in front of the assistant or the coach, strength coach. And then he kind of was like, "Okay, well, why don't you think about it?" I'm like, "No, I want to do it." It's like, just think about it.
We talk about that a lot here, actually. What we talk about is like, it's not always like what you know. Sometimes it's like the people you meet, the people that you network with, the people like you were just talking about that before
Yeah.
when we were in the green room there, about how there's like people that we know and people that we meet that can lift us up and help us to do better. And it sounds like you just found the right guy and you were willing to make that effort to talk to him and push your way in. Like sometimes it's just about having that confidence.
Yeah, and I think it was just a habit of just going after stuff. Like, you know, I still was in the Marine Reserves, and you know, I signed up right after high school, and you know, went through Marine boot camp, 13 weeks, and then had 10 days off, and then went and did more training for a month in Camp Geiger, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So advanced warrior training. And then I had 10 days off, and then I went to Millington, Tennessee. And basically, if you saw Top Gun, when the jets come down and there's a tail hook, the tail hook catches the cable called the deck pennant. That's what I did on land. So I could do the same thing on an aircraft carrier. That was my MOS, aircraft recovery. So make a long story short, I mean, did the Marines. I told myself I'm not quitting. I mean, that first couple of weeks, I'll tell you, man, I was in my bunk and I didn't even get underneath the covers because I'm like, okay, I want my rack to be perfect. I want to get up when they tell me when to get up, do everything they tell me to do, but I'm not quitting. But I'll tell you, there was a couple of days where I was pulling my ears and eyes out.
No doubt.
It was tough. It was more mentally tough. And I think they looked at me as a big guy, and we're going to break this guy first at 225 solid, and it was more mentally than anything. But I think that set the stage for me going after more and more things and just making a decision and going after it. So I made that decision with, of course, the Marines. And then I did that with, with the studio, with the Ritz-Carlton. I walked into the Ritz-Carlton with 15 comment cards from the Radisson and said, hey, I want to apply. Well, I'm sorry, we're not accepting applications today. Well, I just took a bus or a train or whatever to get to Philly and to put my application. I said, well, here you go. Here's 15 comment cards. I think, you may want to look through. It's like, oh, we'll make an exception today for you. We'll accept your application. And I really wanted to work at the Ritz. I also put my application at the Four Seasons, also 4-star, 5-star, 5-diamond, or what have you, top level hotels in Philly.
Right.
And I was just waiting for the Ritz to call me back. But make a long story short, I mean, that was just been the chain of events that I went after something. I saw it happen. I went after it. And, the studio was another thing. I really, really wanted to serve people at the next level. And I had this vision of, the Tai Chi, the yoga, the Pilates, the personal training, the outdoor aspect of it as well, bringing that into it. And that didn't really come in until about 3 years in. That's another story if you want to hear that, how that all unfolded. That actually MGayle Outdoor Adventures, so 2 separate companies.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So I did notice that there's some indoor stuff that you do, and it looks like you have a team around you, and that's like a lot of indoor. There is Pilates, there is Tai Chi, and it looks like there might be some physiotherapy and stuff. Is that your company as well?
Yeah. So MGayle Studio, I had that studio, an actual physical location. I had that for almost 10 years in a nice area of St. Paul. About 3 years in, I got a phone call. And there was this gal on the phone says, my sister's in really rough shape. And this gal's an influential person in the community. And she says, I need an X amount of people. I need your personal trainers or Pilates people. I need an in-home chef, you name it. Can you help us? And I said, yeah, I can. Certainly. Well, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. So just a couple miles away, I sat down with the sister and the client. And she said, what can you do for me? Blah, blah, blah. This is what we need. Can you make it happen? I said, absolutely. And that was that first big close I've ever signed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They had seen me on TV before. They had seen me in the paper, blah, blah, blah. But I was able to help this lady move from basically an inertia. She was doing puzzles.
Right.
And then she was able to get around the block. And then she lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
She went to her son's wedding, and then everyone was hugging and kissing me at the wedding and saying, man, you're like the best thing. Thank you so much for helping my mom out. Yeah. And that person connected me with other in the financial field, connected me to a whole bunch of other people. That's what started the adventures. So I led, formally the adventures. So before that, I was leading smaller trips, but it ended up being 6, 7, 8, well, the 7-week trips at a time, starting at 2-week trips at a time. So everywhere from Argentina to Antarctica, sailed to cross the Drake Passage to Antarctica, all of Norway, mainland Norway, Svalbard, which is the home of the polar bear, owned by Norway. So a group of islands about 3/4 of the way up, Greenland, in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. So sailed from there, Longyearbyen, all the way up to 80 degrees north, which is as far as you can sail in a small sailboat. Otherwise, and even in the summer, I mean, it's like July, August is the only time you can go in. So to make a long story short, I traveled the world first class with a group of people that were powerful people. Yeah. And my job was to put together these adventures and to connect the people in country that could help us to fulfill what the clients wanted. And make sure, of course, to approve it with them. So they took care of my fees and then all the travel expenses on top of it. Wow. So it was just an amazing 4.5 years full time. Yeah. So what I gave up, it was a dream come true plus. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. Yeah. What I gave up was, I lost a marriage out of the deal. And although it was a great opportunity, I was away a lot and came back to a wife that wasn't too happy with me. And I don't blame her. But on the positive note of things, I gained a lot of experience traveling the world. I met a lot of connections all around the world, from the Arctic. I mean, as far as you can go north, the settlement. There's a scientific research station. I've been there in Svalbard, to as far as you can go south. I mean, not quite. I mean, the Antarctic Peninsula, right? So, and then everywhere in between, all throughout Canada, you name it. So I have a certain lens and way I see the world. And it's, my company, MGayle Outdoor Adventures, is about having people fall in love with fitness on their own terms and fall in love with the outdoors on their own terms for life. And I'm passionate about it because I know that I've already done it.
Right.
I've seen these things. They've been complete bliss. Some of them have been surreal. Didn't even seem like they were real.
Right.
Like at nighttime, at night watch in Antarctica, and we're sailing, and there's waves crashing up over the bow of the ship. And I'm on first watch, and I'm like, is this freaking real? And I'm pinching myself. I'm like, there's no way. Like rain gear on. I had these, goggles on. I was all like, and it was cold, and it was, but it was real. Something you read in a book, right, or something you'd see on TV. And I said, okay,
how does that happen though? So we'll go back to Antarctica. Someone approaches you that has money and wants to do a huge experience, like sail through Antarctica, and they fund it, and then you are there for what reason?
I'm there to keep them alive. My whole responsibility is to get them back alive. Right.
Right.
Pretty cool.
So I'm trained. I have a ski mountaineer with NALS, National Outdoor Leadership School, which is like the top organization, at least in the States, for training outdoor guides. Right. And then I'm trained with their WWOOFer, Wilderness Outdoor First Responder training. I'm trained as a Tom Brown Scout up to the Scout level. There's many other levels, but he's a Native American Apache trained survivalist and tracker. So I've trained with Tom Brown and the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, up to that Scout level. And then, of course, I have Marine cold weather training, desert survival training, United States Marine Corps. And then I have a background in kinesiology and Pilates and Tai Chi and myriad of martial arts, right? So I'm a good person to have around from a survivalist aspect. If something hits the fan, I'm a good person to have around, but also from a self-defense aspect. If we're in country and there's someone comes by on a motorbike and they want to try to steal a purse, then I'm probably not the person to tangle with.
Right.
I'm going to handle it. Right. So it's if someone wants to do an expedition, I mean, right now I have an 11-year-old daughter. So I do a trip a year right now. The goal is in 3 to 5 years to do an expedition to Antarctica again, right? So sail across in a small boat, 60 feet, maybe a little bit bigger, depending on how many people. Eight people is about the max for a 60-foot sailboat. But from Ushuaia, Argentina, the southern tip, through the Beagle Channel into open water, the Drake Passage. It's about 2.5 to 3 days sail, and it's some of the most tumultuous seas anywhere in the world. So you got to pick a good weather window. Of course, I'm not the skipper, but I know the skippers that do it.
Right.
There's a group of people that sail to Antarctica. They're and they love it. And so I'm going to organize that and recruit a bunch of people that are ready to have the ride of their lives. And we're going to sail to Antarctica, Antarctic Peninsula. And it's a 2.5 to 3 week journey. And then, of course, we sail back.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's quite amazing. If you've ever seen Antarctica on film or what have you, it's kind of like Norway, that the mountains go straight up. And it's like Mars, where it's like there's things that you just don't. It's just wild. These tablet icebergs, and it's the wildlife is just amazing.
So, if someone wanted to be a part of that adventure, how would they become a part of that adventure?
It's a great question. I think the best thing is for me to vet people first before they, I don't want to just take any random person, because to be honest with you, I get someone random that I don't know, that I've never worked with before, that I've never trained with before, that I've never actually been through a storm with before.
Right.
And they start freaking out. There's no way out. They're going to jeopardize the safety of everyone else on board. Right. It's not like you can dump a person overboard. You don't do that. I mean,
you might want to.
Like Shackleton, he did something with, the race to Antarctica. I mean, if someone was mutinied, the skipper, and they didn't follow the rules, then you get shot or whatever else. I don't know what they did. We just kind of walk off into a blizzard. You never be seen again. That was back in the olden days, right? But now
frown on that now.
I'm not going to do that. So the point is that someone wanted to. Of course, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. If someone had to do it, I need to vet them really well. So they'd have to literally go through, storms with me. I like to take some mountain trips with them first. I like to, do some sailing with them first, get on a sailboat right here on Lake Superior. Superior swallowed some crazy big ships. Yeah. It's the deepest of the Great Lakes. And there's the water, from what I've told, I've never scuba dived, that it's cold as all heck year round. Yeah. But what I've been told is that the water is just murky. So even if you have a flashlight down there, a really heavy beam, it's still murky water. You're going to try to dive down to these shipwrecks and what have you. I don't know how they do it.
So, Michael, how do you? There's a couple things you said there that I kind of want to play with a bit. So first of all, how do you pivot somebody like your average tourist? You know, me. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, so you and me have a lot in common that way, right? And it's like, okay, that pivoting from sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais and enjoying that experience to pivot to be like, I want to chase penguins. What does that look like? What kind of consumer is looking at your product and being like, buckle up, let's go?
Yeah, that's a great question. Not everyone wants to do. I've mentioned the kind of the extreme adventures, right? And that they're not all extreme adventures. Some of them were cultural based things, but that were less intense. Certainly, they're not all intense. Yeah. But it's someone that wants that. First they got to put their health first, okay? Because I'm a trainer, right? So I'm an expert in getting people ready for expeditions, for things. That's what I've done for a long time. I've been in the field for over 26 years. So they have to get mentally, physically, emotionally ready for whatever it is that they want to do. So a person that wants to do something adventurous, oftentimes, they say, okay, I'm going to do Machu Picchu or something like that, or I'm going to, check out this, the pilgrimage in Spain. I'm going to do that and hike. And that's still intense. They probably don't come to me and say, I want to, sail from Ushuaia, Argentina, across the Drake Passage to the Antarctic Peninsula. They got to work with me, and they see when they go through the storms with me that I'm relaxed, I'm calm in the storm, right? That's where it's just so beautiful. And they see that I'm calm, and then they become calm. And then they say, okay, I want to go through another storm. I like this. This is fun. It's not cocky. It's not disrespectful or like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to the storm because I'm a tough guy. No, it's respectful of Mother Nature. Like, I don't screw with Mother Nature. Mother Nature tells me to get off a freaking lake. I'm off the lake.
Yeah.
If Mother Nature tells me to set up camp, I can set up camp. If Mother Nature tells me to get the heck out of that area of woods, there's a forest fire, I'm the heck out of there, or at least I'll try. I'm not going to, push Mother Nature.
Right.
But people start at a lower level, right? And they get conditioned first, like physically. And if they're already come to me conditioned, that's great. I'll test them out, make sure. Maybe they don't have the emotional thing. Maybe they start crying halfway during the storm. They're really tough people on the outside. Right. But you get them in a snowstorm. I've never been in a snowstorm before. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, my face feels like it's going to freeze off. Like I felt when I first moved to Minnesota from Pennsylvania, right? The cold in PA versus the cold in Minnesota. My first experience walking the Cook Hall, right? Kinesiology department. I forgot a hat. I forgot my gloves. And it felt like my face literally was going to freeze the heck off. It was just a couple blocks. And I look over just, right in front of me. And there's this guy in spandex shorts and a t-shirt jogging. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I'm about to die here. And there's this guy in spandex shorts. Absolutely unreal. So it's
so Michael, that's a great thing. We just had James just got back from Portugal, and all these, he was running over there doing these big hills, like Portugal's all up and down, right? And James is over there in shorts and a t-shirt, and they're all in puffer jackets, all that sort of thing. I'm like, that's a good Canadian wood. Like, what else would you expect? Right?
Yeah, they look at me like I had 3 heads for sure. They were very just they were cold all the time. I don't know, like it was wild. I was sweating and boiling, and here they all were with toques and jackets, and it was 15 out. It was wild. It
is. I mean,
that's a great adventure, but you're absolutely right. For me, a lot of the stuff that I do now, like I'm not doing what you're doing. Like I've done a half marathon. I'm working my way up to a marathon now. A lot of it is mental game. Like my physical is solid now. I can run and run and run and run, and I know I can run. Like when I was doing the half marathon on the weekend there. But the last couple of K, that's when your brain starts attacking you and starts saying you can't do it, or that, you're just in pain and maybe you should stop, and maybe you should slow down, or maybe you should give up. Why are you doing this anyway? No one's watching you. And that's when you got to, buckle down and get your mental game on. And I deal with violent behaviors too, which is kind of like a storm, like you say. And in the middle of that violent behavior, you have to like center yourself. And it's a respect. You have to be calm. You have to be chill, and you have to know what's going on all the way around you, like every direction, where the danger is coming from, what the weather is like outside, and how you're going to deal with it. And it's like being in the center of the storm, and there's a calmness to it, but you respect it too. Like you said, like you said, like if a tornado is coming, I'm not going to stay in the campground. I'm leaving. Right. But if it's just a hailstorm, I'm going to buckle down, put some tarps up. It's going to be fun, right? But I'm interested. So I'm a guy that's interested in that stuff. Like I'm trying to build up to doing stuff like you're saying. It would be kind of cool to sail. It would be kind of cool to do these big ultra races and things like that. So what is your advice for someone? I'm 53. I'm just getting in shape now. I've been running for a year. I can run 21K. I'm going to be hopefully be able to run 42 by October. So how do I go from that to starting to do some of the stuff that you're saying?
That's an awesome question. Okay. So I talked to you a lot about Pilates, and Pilates is just a word. And most people associate Pilates with a bunch of people in tights. And most of the time the men look at Pilates. They don't look at, the instructors as someone who looks like me. Right? 6'3", 250 pounds, built, strong. They look at, at more of a femme sort of thing. It's mostly women, which it is, it's a lot of women that teach it. There's very few male instructors. But I'm here to tell you, like I mentioned before, that the Pilates is for everyone. And one of the things that the reason why you need Pilates, right, is part of what you're doing. I mean, the cardio is great. The strength training as far as weights, I mean, that's great as well. But Pilates will give you a feedback system. One of the things it teaches you to where you're going to know when you go into a place that's not safe. So in other words, you're hiking up a mountain. This is what you chose to do for your adventure, right? You're hiking up 14,000 feet, right? And you get about 3/4 of the way and you're feeling fine. You've been hydrating, so you're acclimating just fine to the altitude. But you're not, you haven't trained in Pilates, and you step on a rock and it's loose, so it slips out, and then you tweak something, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to just keep going because I'm not going to not turn around. I prepared. I put all the expense, all the stuff that to get up to this point. I'm not going to turn around. But well, you keep going, and all of a sudden, things start to blow up. They start to swell up, and you get into you're experiencing pain. And you say, well, I can't do this anymore. Well, that doesn't have to happen. I'm not saying you can avoid every single mishap, right. But most of the time when people, when something happens, they go off someplace and they're thinking about something else, or they just don't have the awareness system built to have that awareness when they're in an unstable situation. Pilates teaches that. It's all about stability. Everything runs through the core musculature, which is the 4 layers of abs, right? The lower back, the glutes, the hip flexors, everything moves through it. All movement goes through it. If I'm reaching for open the cupboard or the refrigerator or to push the file cabinet, it's coming from my belly first, right? Lower back, glutes, hip flexors, everything runs through that. Most people aren't trained. They don't even know that exists. They don't even know there's neuromuscular patterns. You can actually rewire your system to have a new pattern that better suits you for a life of activity. That's why physical therapies, many of them, have Pilates equipment in their clinics. They have reformers, which is the most popular piece of Pilates equipment, teaches proprioception, which is basically a faster way to learn the concepts, right? You go by feel. When I was did training with Tom Brown in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, I told you I did that, tracking training up to the scout level. He actually gave me a bandana. I have it someplace. There it is. So we did a Native American ritual, right? And I mean, it's sat in a circle and right? And respect. I have a lot of respect for Native American, the culture, tradition, the elders that people have been around the longest, they're the ones that respect it. You don't cross them.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of respect. But my point is that part of the training leading up to it, I'm not sure if it was Scout. It was one of the other advanced level courses, but I was fully camoed from head to toe. I had swamp mud all over my whole body. All I was wearing was a breechcloth. So no shoes, no nothing, no socks.
Wow.
And I had white ash on my face because there was sand on the bottom, so to blend in with the sand. So from the fireplace in different points. And then you had your line. There's like 115 of us. And they only gave us a few instructions. They said, okay, well, when you go, you're going to do a drum beat every so often. Listen to the drum beat. And when you go off in the woods, we don't want you to crash through the woods. Yield. And that was it. We had blindfolds around us and we went off into the woods. There was no time that we're going to come back. They said, just don't crash, yield. And I was like, yield.
What does that mean, Michael? Explain to me a little bit what you mean by that. Don't crash, yield. Like you're saying, like,
yeah. I mean, that's the instructions they gave us. So I'm walking, right? I'm blindfolded. So there's a point to all this story. I'm going to come back to it. The proprioception piece. So I'm blindfolded. And I think of the Pilates training that I've undergone, right? All that training, a year and a half of training, just get this full 670-hour certification. So I lower my center. I go into a stalk. So my knees are bent. I take the heel of my foot, so my right foot, I turn out to the outside of my foot, then the inside of my foot. Then I'm going to place all that weight onto that foot to just place down, gently down. And it's a slow process. I'm going to put all that weight on that right foot and do the same thing with it. Now I'm going to hit a lock. So I go and I'm start to roll down with that left foot and go outside, and there I feel a lock. So then I pick my foot up and then I back it up a little bit and I strike and go through a nice slow process. Wow. And then I know that log's there. So I go up and over that log. And then I feel a branch right against my face. So rather than try to go through that branch and break it or whatever else, he said, yield. So I drop my body, twist up and around,
right,
and then back and go around it, yield to it versus trying to crash through it. And that's what most people have been trained to do.
Right.
They want to do things quick, a high intensity training. And I'm all for high intensity. Don't get me wrong. I like high intensity stuff. I'm not, I'm a prior service Marine. I've done a lot of intense stuff in my life. I've done, I'm a formal mixed martial artist, right? I mean, I was on a team when I first moved to Minnesota and was involved with the ICC. They wanted to get me in a fight. Oh, he looks like Vin Diesel, blah, blah, blah. My point is I chose to go into business to open up the studio instead of being an ICC, which is the Minnesota version of the USC. So to make a long story short, I'm blindfolded and I'm thinking to myself, okay, just breathe, focus on your breath, focus on your breath, focus on your breath, focus on your foot strike, which isn't Pilates. It all starts with footwork, right? And then I said, okay, well, listen to the drum beat. First, it was once every 30 seconds, and it was once every minute, and once every minute and a half, and 2 minutes. And it felt like it was once every 5 minutes after that. And then kind of redirect, calm yourself down. You're not trying to rush through this. Calm down, focus on your breath. And then I said, okay, think about the third eye. And I'm not like, with third eye, what the heck are you talking about? I mean, I've never done that stuff before. My eyes were, they're shut. I got this blindfold and I just kind of felt this heat or this energy there right in the center of my forehead. And I said, okay, well, it's going to help direct me. And it was more of less listening to the sound and knowing where to go, directing me where to go. Where the next steps? Do I go this way? Do I go this way? Do I go backwards? And I just went along with that, kept focusing on my breath, kept my center of gravity kept down. I wasn't rushing through it, yielded, whatever. There's sticker bushes. I took a different direction, went around it. And I however long, an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half later, I stepped out and I heard crackling. I'm like, what the heck? And someone put their hand on my shoulder and said, sit down, take off your blindfold. I took off my blindfold, I looked around, and there's like a few people at the fire. Well, we started with 150, 120 people. Where the heck are all these people? Wow. And when I listened, and it was a whole bunch of crashing, thud, thud, boom, boom. People were tripping and falling. Yeah. I mean, so it was another, 20 minutes, a half an hour. And then they just call off. They said, okay, we're done. Everybody come out of the woods, take your blindfolds off and come back. And there's like 5 of us that actually made. I didn't know there was a destination. There was a point, but there's 5, like 150, 120 people that made it to the fire. And it made it to the fire, which I didn't know existed, was because I listened to them. I listened. Tom Brown said, don't crash through it. Don't try to go through and break through everything and then rush through it because you're trying to compete. And in my whole life, I've tried to compete, martial arts and, myriad different martial arts and, racing, foot racing, and you name it, football and wrestling. And it's all about competing. Right. And, but my boxing instructor told me the same thing. And I first started boxing in Minnesota, and I've done boxing in Pennsylvania, in Upper Darby. I started when I was young. But and right here in Minnesota, he said, Mike, just relax, man. He's like, just throw your arms, throw them, just have fun, smile, relax, and breathe. Yeah. Don't hold your breath because you get tense. You're in a boxing ring, and you think, oh, I can last 3 minutes. You hold your breath, you're not going to last 3 minutes, you're going to be out of breath, and you start getting hit. So the concept is the same. Proprioception, basically, that fancy word, P-R-O-P-R-I-O-ception, C-E-P-T-I-O-N, is basically moving by feel. And that's what Pilates teaches. So I'm blindfolded. I'm not moving by sight. I'm moving by feel. So I'm out doing I was at the Berkey Trail, not too far from the Berkey Trail, which is where I raced on, right? Right. Just several weeks ago, 4 weeks ago or so. And we were doing a night ski with my fiance. It was flat, no big deal, but it's moonlight. There's no lights out there. So you have to go by feel, not your eyesight. Trust how you feel. And that's a lot of the core musculature. So you learn this system, the Pilates system. The big takeaway is trust on your feel versus trusting on your eyesight. Does that make sense? It sounds like
yeah. Now, so I have done a form of Pilates, but it does not sound like the same stuff that you're talking about. So is it possible that the Pilates that you're talking about is different? So the Pilates that I've done is a lot of core work, and there's like some weights involved, and there's a lower sense of gravity and stuff like that. But it's definitely not. You're talking more like it's a Tai Chi kind of Pilates.
Well, sit up in your seat right now. I mean, you guys are going to feel it right the heck now. Okay. Right over your sit bones. So your sit bones are your butt bones right in the middle,
Yep.
right? Or your ischial tuberosity is your butt bone. So kind of roll back and forth and then find the middle, and there's a bone there. You sit right over the center of it, right? So your feet are on the ground. Press your feet down just a little bit, down into the ground, the carpet, whatever you're on. Now squeeze your inner thighs. Squeeze them together just a little bit in, right? Now sit up a little bit higher, even just straight up, right over your sit bones. Now take your ribs, right here. Breathe out. Knit those ribs together nice and tight so they're right underneath the chest. Don't pop them, right? Now open your shoulders across the chest. So squeezing thick pieces of paper behind your armpits so the shoulders open up like this. Then you're going to reach from the crown of the head. As most of us guys lose our hair right here, the crown. You're going to reach from the crown, reach up as tall as you can. Eye gaze is straight forward.
I got the tan line from skiing all weekend.
Awesome. Looks great, brother. So reach up, reach about a 16th of an inch, an eighth of an inch higher. Now hold it up there. Keep reaching as high as you can. Eye gaze is straight forward. You should feel your belly. You feel your belly?
Mm-hmm.
You feel a little bit?
Yeah.
Now hold it there for 5 seconds. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, relax. Now, what if you did all your movement? Everything you did was through that.
Yeah.
You're moving through the TA. The transverse abdominis, that deep posterior abdominal muscle, is the same stuff that you tap into the proprioception. It's the plank muscle.
Okay.
As it gets stronger, you sit taller, you walk taller, you do everything. So your soft tissue, right, gets less impact. There's less pressing down when you're running. When you're doing anything impact related, you're going to save that cartilage. That once it's gone, it's gone. You can get stem cell treatment. It's expensive as heck, but they never guarantee you they're going to get that cartilage to regrow in your body. So the main thing is take care of the stuff, the soft tissue you have, your connective tissue, your ligaments, your tendons. You want them to be more spring-like and less wooden. You don't want them to dry out, because they dry out. What happens? They rip, they tear.
Yep.
Then you're out of commission. So Pilates will help it to be more spring-like and to keep you in the game for life.
So now Pilates, when we see it, well, I'm going to call it like the Pilates type table, right? And you're doing your stretching, more weight bearing type stretch.
Okay.
Is that how do you take that machine and relate it to, say, more like a plyo type workout, like a plyometric type workout? Is there a difference? What is that? Am I just confusing the two completely?
Okay, so but you're plyometric. So you're isometric, certainly.
Okay.
So if we're talking plyometric, like a forced, really quick throwing a ball, a medicine ball, that sort of thing. It's more of isometrics that we're using. So more like your planks. There's a lot of plank movements, or holding a position like your legs are in a bent at 90 degrees or diagonal straight out away from your body, circling your legs. So the whole time your ribs stay knit together, your shoulders are open across the chest, your head's reaching long, tailbone's opposite your head, your feet are reaching opposite your head, and you're moving through your belly. So as you're moving your legs, your belly is burning. It's on fire. As you're moving your arms, your belly is on fire the whole time. So no movement happens without the lengthening aspect of it, which is a big key. I didn't hear you guys mention that within your training. You got to have the lengthening piece, which is why I had you sit up. So it's not a forced plyo or dynamic in the real quick, let's get sports specific, but there is some plyometric, and there's a jump board in the Reformer. It's called the Reformer, which is the most popular piece of Pilates equipment. The Cadillac is the big one with the bars that go across, the vertical bars. There's bars that go across. You can do all types of pull-ups and such on it. Yeah. But there's a dynamic jump board where you actually can jump off of these discs and then come back, and it becomes cardiovascular in nature. And it is more like a plyometric, right? Except the difference is that you are getting really, really good at slowing down your speed. Because if you crash, when I use that word crash is like this. If you walk or you're jumping and you come down
right
like that,
yeah
you see, if you have ever seen a ballet, and I'm not saying guys have to go out and watch ballet. I just grew up with 2 sisters that were in ballet and a mother, right? That they went to ballet. So I went to the recitals. I got exposed to classical music, blah, blah, blah. The point is I was exposed to it. So it was okay, right? It's okay for a big man or a big boy to go to this ballet and check it out. And so if you've ever seen one, they're nice, they're soft, they come up, they're on their toes, they come down, they do all this fancy stuff, but there's no crashing.
Right.
Same concept as the tracking stuff I talked to you when I was going through the woods, right? Where I got to the end point, which I didn't know there was an end point because I listened to my instructor. I wasn't crashing. I wasn't trying to go through and break stuff and go fast. I was yielding. Pilates is the same concept, right?
Mickey, actually, you just said something that just kind of sparked me there. So my daughter, she was a competitive gymnast for years. And so she competed at like, it would be like state level, provincial level. Kind of. And she's recently pivoted. She kind of went through about a 1.5 year growth spurt where she's about 5'9" now at 13 years old. Like she's just too big to be a gymnast, right? She's not really very tall. So she's now taken on rugby. And talk about like diametrically opposed sports and the training that goes into it. But one of the things that has made her really successful is that when she gets that ball, she's loose. She's elusive because she's loose, right? And you were saying something in regards to the Pilates is that softness, that core strength that she's able to build. When you have these other girls that are trying to hit her and she's able to drop and just be able to move her hips differently than a lot of that, instead of breaking through and force conquer force, she yields exactly like you're saying, and she's able to drop those hips, just kind of pivoting around things in that gymnastics or that ballet platform. I think that's a great way of putting it.
It's why these pro football players, these top level MVPs. Who was the MVP that played for the Packers? The
Favre that we're talking about, or
Packers. I mean, like most valuable player. He took the Packers to however many Super Bowls. Who was it?
Are we talking Favre?
Yeah,
that's like a bad word in Minnesota, isn't it?
I don't care. I don't care. The point is, I believe he does reformer. He's been taking reformer stuff for white time. I mean, you look at people and they're in their 40s, right, and playing stuff like football, pro football. How the heck do they stay in pro football? You got to ask the question. Unless they're doing something right. And what is he doing? He has all the money in the world. What is he doing? He's doing Pilates reformer.
That's cool.
I taught it to a grandmaster, 10th degree black belt in Kung Fu. He also is that boxing coach I talked about.
Wow.
He's one of the late Joe Frazier's nephews. Last name is Frazier, right here in Minnesota. Wow. I taught him Pilates, and he's taught it to all of his students. Now he teaches his boxers Kung Fu. Right? Within the elements of Kung Fu, within boxing. But he's also taught his students Pilates. Now, why the heck would he spend time teaching his pro boxers, amateur and pro professional boxers, Pilates, unless there wasn't something powerful there? So the point is that we need to get past these ideas of, it's femme. No, it's not femme. And we thought it's femme because all we see it, we think Pilates is our wives are going taking these classes and they're in spandex. Right. No, I'm a Pilates instructor. I'm not femme. And I've taught a lot of masculine men. Guys need this stuff, right? So it keeps you in the game for life. And so that's why Pilates, that all modalities I've ever studied, Pilates is the modality. It's a type of fitness that you need to learn to keep you in the game of life as far as moving. Right. So you stay moving into your 80s and your 90s. I mean, I did this Berkey. I told you this cross-country ski race and just finished it up just a couple weeks ago. And they have a class of 70 and older people. They race this 35-mile race. They're like, some of these people are 80-something years old. It's been going on for 49 years. They got like 47, 48 on their jersey. It says how many times you've done it. They've done it like 47, 48 times. One person, I'm sure there's a couple have done it 49 times every single year. They've done it. Yeah. I mean, that's insane to have someone in their 80s do
Just
30
so
hilly, 35 miles of hills.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
it's hardcore for any athlete,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That I trained, like that gal that I trained the year before last, not this past Berkey, a couple weeks
Right.
ago. So my point is that Pilates in an adventure setting, I get people right to the point where they want to go and do adventures because their
Right.
body feels so good. Why not? Why not push yourself, but do it with respect, right? Stay in the game, go out there, explore the world, adventure, because there's a mental health component to getting outdoors. There just is.
There is.
People need it more than ever.
Yeah.
They need that mental health component.
Yeah.
Men need it. Men need other men to build them up. We just do. We need other strong men to build us up in this world. We don't have to take care of our families, right?
Yeah.
But we need other men that are good men that are about, hey man, let's lift you up. Let's keep you going. Yeah, you got a lot of weight on your shoulders. No, you don't talk about it too much because we're not supposed to talk about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you this is a gift that I'm giving people. And I believe in it because I know the stuff works. And I'm telling you that men need this stuff.
For sure. I think you're absolutely right. The physical stuff that I do now is life-changing for me. Like, so when I wasn't doing very much, you get depressed and you get kind of worn out and you're not sharing with other people. And then you start working out, you start running, you start getting out there and doing stuff with other people, with other men.
That's right.
And you start supporting each other and you start talking and you feel accomplished. You go from a state of, because I really believe guys need that physical aspect in their life.
Well, yeah, heck yeah, we do. I mean, it's been with us for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like it just goes out of us because society says all of a sudden we're not supposed to play these roles.
Right.
We're a protector role. I'm a protector. Yeah. Right. That's what I do. That's who I am. I'm a protector.
Yeah.
But most men have within them, whether they realize it or not, that they're protectors. That's part of what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's not sexist. It's not sexist. I'm very respectful to women.
Yeah.
Very respectful. I have two sisters. I have, 2 daughters, one 22, one's 11. Yeah. I got tons of respect. I have a fiance who's a strong woman. She's a corporate lead for a very big company. I've been around strong women my whole life. It doesn't intimidate me. I embrace it, but it doesn't mean that I can't be a man, right?
Nope.
So I'm here as a company to build up men, to build up women, to build up families. And I want the men, the stuff that I teach them, I want them to teach their daughters. I want them to teach their sons. Yep. I want their families.
No, I think it's fantastic, right? I think that what you're doing, there's such a unique spot for it. And, we talk about kind of the cookie cutter box that is, physical fitness and training and all the things that go along with it. You get your big box gyms that are, buy your membership, we're going to fix all your problems. And you go in there and you flash your card for the first month in January, and then no one's ever back. They burn out. They decide it's not for them. And then it kind of exactly what you're talking about. They end up getting hurt because they don't know what they're doing, but they did it in college. So, hey, I used to lift a little in college. It's still the same thing. And someone like yourself to come in there with the energy that you bring. Obviously, we've been almost an hour here in a podcast, and you can tell that you're a passionate guy. Like you enjoy this. You live off of this. Like this is something that you thrive off of. And people like us that, get an opportunity to tap into that energy and that excitement. I'm sitting here like, well, fuck, I'm not going to run because I have a car. This guy, I always teased him, like 21 kilometers. Like I would drive, moron. Like what's wrong with you? Like get in the car. That's my joke. I like ripping on him as much as I can about it. But no, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And it obviously you're building a community of men and you're supporting your families and your friends. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. No, I think it's cool. So now,
thank you. I appreciate that. It's coming. The enthusiasm, the passion comes from love, man. I just want to let you know there's no judgment there. I am not judging men. No, I'm not judging women. Right. I'm open to students who want to learn. Right. I don't know everything about everything. I know fitness. I know about adventure and about the outdoors. I can teach it. I'm a good teacher. I'm very patient. I'm very caring. I'm very loving. But it's all the passion is coming from knowing that I have this gift and it's my purpose on this earth. right? To lift people up, to see them. People are suffering right now more than ever.
Absolutely.
They're suffering. They're sitting at home, whether they're playing games or whatever else. They don't leave their house. And I mean, it's like people need to get outdoors.
Yeah.
People need to move. I don't care what people tell you. We got to move. We're meant to move. Men, women, we got to move. It helps with our stress. It helps with our ability to handle things under pressure. If we get, someone surprises us all of a sudden. I did a study for myself. I didn't work out hardly at all, like once a week. And it was like couple months, right? So I'm driving the car. I do this long drive every week to see my daughter.
There's a dead guy somewhere in this story, I can tell.
There's someone that pulled in front of me, and it was like 6 weeks, 7 weeks in of the 2 weeks, and I minimal worked out, and my blood pressure just went out the roof, man. I got tunnel vision, and that never happened before to me when I was training. So I didn't train. Now all of a sudden I go to tunnel vision, and I'm freaking out. My heart's beating out of my chest because someone pulled in front of me. But when I do train, I train that response. I go up hills. I get my heart rate up for periods of time. I'm comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then I'm fine.
Yeah.
So my point is there's a lot of pressures on people and on men and women, but I think especially men right now in our society today.
Totally.
Yeah. And wouldn't we want to train? And I'm not saying Pilates is the only modality. I'm certainly not saying that. Yeah, you want to get your cardio in. If you want to strength train. All I'm saying is Pilates is a base camp. Right. As a go-to to teach you the skills, get a tool belt on, and then go do Olympic training if you want to do Olympic training. Yeah. And because you're going to you'll know when it's safe or when it's not safe. If you don't have that education, you go into Olympic training, chances are, especially for men over 40, you're going to end up hurting yourself pretty bad, and you're not going to come back from it.
Right.
Unless you're like me, right?
Before I started running, I did CrossFit, and I was working out with a bunch of young people. And that's exactly what happened. I just kept on hurting myself over and over and over again because I figured I could do what they did. And I would be damned if that young guy beside me is going to lift more than I did, or he's going to row longer than I did, or he's going to throw the ball against the wall one more time than I do. And at the end of the day, I would be hurt because I am an old man and I'm not designed for that. And I wasn't doing anything else. I was just doing CrossFit, and it was a huge mistake. So then I got into running, and running has literally changed my life. I think I talk to everyone about it. You just have to get out and do stuff. If you're sitting in your basement all night, every day, you're watching TikTok, you're watching videos, and you don't go outside, your mental health is just going to eat you up inside. You're going to be constantly fighting yourself. You're never, ever going to get ahead in the world. But every time you go outside, you lace up a shoe and you go outside, it changes your whole world. You want to make your bed, you want to get your clothes done, you want to have your dishes done, you want to come home and you're happy, and you want to like throw your arms around your girlfriend, you want to, play with your dog, and you have the energy to play with your children. And, this is all game changers for me. Mike, I hate to cut us short. We're at 58 minutes now. This usually runs about an hour for recorded stuff. And I know that in like 2 minutes, you're going to be in bed. So what we do is we do a little wrap up here. And so I'm going to say a little bit, and then I have a little tagline that I say, and then Pat will say his piece. He has a tagline, and then you can do your little piece. And then whatever tagline you come up with, you'll get it. It's pretty easy stuff. We do it at the end of every show. So guys out there, profiteers out there, I knew Michael would be a great guy to have on. I met him quite a while ago on LinkedIn back when I was doing Autism in Perspective. And when I was watching his stuff, he just impressed the hell out of me. And he's just a great guy. And as you can see, he is passionate about what he does. And what he does is he lifts other people up. And I'm 100% with him. You guys know out there that I'm passionate about running. I'm passionate about working out. I'm passionate about our mental game. So if you do get nothing from this, get out there and just do something. Every day, do something. Next week, we have a wonderful guest, a very, very dear friend of mine, Dara. She is a cancer survivor. She is the most beautiful, wonderful woman that I've ever met. And God, she is so courageous. I can't wait till you meet her. And it's going to be a hard one for me, as you can tell. Anyway, Thank you very much, Mike. Oh my God, I love what you do. And do you know what? Maybe I'll get into some Pilates so that one day I can get on a ship with him, because I think that would be amazing. Oh my God, that would be like a dream come true. Okay, profiteers, thank you for joining us. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
Yeah, Mike, we stick you with the last little word here, so we'll hopefully squeeze that in for you. You get to send off a bit. So, profiteers out there, thank you again, Michael, for joining us tonight. It's very cool stuff what you do, pal. And obviously, you come out of a really special place from your heart. And you know, as a fellow father of daughters, there's a special place for that in building up women and strong women and capable women. So I appreciate what you're doing out there. And lending that to the other gentlemen out there in the world. So I appreciate you, pal. As for us here, very interesting person next week, Dara, again, cancer survivor. It's going to be kind of a bit of a tearjerker, I think, for James. Join us. And as always, folks, let's make some money together. Mike, final words, pal, and send us off.
I would say everyone has fears, right? Embrace your fears, because on the other side of fear is bliss. So I gave some examples about crossing the ocean, the Drake Passage to Antarctica, and I didn't tell you about the polar bear experience in Svalbard, but there's been a lot of fears on that journey. But once you face the fears and you're able to stay calm in the storm, it's an amazing experience. The feeling of getting past that and living life and experiencing surreal moments. And I think that's part of life. You know, sometimes it takes a push. Sometimes it takes a coach such as myself to be there for you and help to guide you to get super fit and to embrace life at a whole new level. So James and Patrick, I appreciate you guys. Yes, I got a little excited most of the session. I appreciate you guys very much. And I will certainly spread the word of your podcast to everyone that I know.
Oh, I appreciate it.